My name's David Lammy, and in 2007 Tony Blair asked me, as the Minister for Culture, if I would steer through the country our preparation for the abolition of the slave trade, which happened in 1807. And I was very proud to do that. It was a deep honour for me as the ancestor of slaves, but it was wonderful to do that and to think about this country's contribution to bringing about that terrible, terrible trade. One of the things that came out of that was the International Slavery Museum in Liverpool. A tremendous resource, not just for Liverpool, not just for this country, but for the world. We can come together in that museum thinking about the many historic issues of slavery, but also looking to the future and reminding new generations why we should stand up against oppression, stand up against genocide, stand up against violence against human beings. We brought the slave trade to an end in this country because great men and women stood up. Free slaves like Orlando Equiano stood up and said, no, this must end. And great parliamentarians like William Wilberforce stood up. But actually, ordinary men and women across the country, boycotting things like sugar that came from the trade, stood up and said enough is enough. The human dignity and human rights of the human being are fundamentally important, and in a sense it's that moment that leads us up to this point where we take the rights of children, of women, of ethnic minorities so important and so seriously in this country. So we have much to learn, and sadly we have much to learn because slavery still exists in the world. Children and women are still trafficked across Europe and across all of our continents. People still pay for young slaves and for sex, and there is still a lot of work to do to end this evil trafficking of people. And very sadly, genocide is still with us. From time to time in different countries, and we can think of Rwanda, we can think of Darfur, these terrible acts that man can commit to one another are committed that take us back to that time. And that's why it's so important that on August the 23rd, across the world, people come together to remember the emancipation of those slaves, to remember those horrific times, to honour the lives lost, to pay respect to the people that stood up and say no, and to redouble our efforts in the modern age to stand on the shoulders of those giants and say that we too can once and for all bring this evil practice to an end. So I congratulate you for being here today, to listening to me, but more importantly, to continuing the fight to end slavery.